Welcome back to the Delaware Way. Delaware has 5 new accredited museums. I'll tell you why that's a big deal in a second. But first, let me introduce the people who are in charge of those museums. Suzanne Savery is the director of the Delaware Division of Historical and Cultural Affairs, and Gloria Henry is the site supervisor for the John Dickinson Plantation. I'll ask you about that in a second. But first, let's talk about your organization. What is it? And what do you do?
Well, the Division of Historical and Cultural Affairs is an agency of the state of Delaware, and we're involved in the preservation of Delaware history. We look at trying to preserve historic sites, we operate museums, we do a number of programs. We own 40 properties from one end of the state to the other, and 5 of them happen to be operated as museums. And
now talk about the accreditation and why that's a big deal.
That was a big deal. Last year in 2017, we were accredited as by the American Alliance of Museums. And that is significant in that it illustrates that we meet best practices and professional standards according to the museum field. There are about 30,000 museums in the country, and just over 1,000 of them are accredited. So we were part of that small group, and it's very exciting that show that the programs that we present, the way we operate the museums, the way we care for the collection meets best practices and professional standards. And in Delaware, there are now 3 institutions that meet that standard, and it is Winterthur, Hagley, and the Delaware Division of Historical and Cultural Affairs, and it's 5 museums.
Well, congratulations for that. Now let's ask about the John Dickinson Plantation. What is that?
It is the boyhood home of John Dickinson, who was a framer and a signer of the U.S. Constitution. He was also governor of Delaware and governor of Pennsylvania.
Oh, really?
Yes.
There comes questions, of course, as soon as you hear the word plantation. The history of the plantation. Were there slaves there?
Oh, yes. There were as many as 58 men, women, boys, and girls who were owned by the Dickinson family. We don't shy away from the history. We tell you about it, and we also tell you their stories. We have done some research on the various people who lived there and called it their home, and so that does include the enslaved individuals, it does include the indentured servants, and it does include the free people.
I'd love to get
there.
your take on what's happening across the country with Robert E. Lee statues being brought down, Civil War memorabilia being brought down, trying to sometimes erase the memory of what happened at that time. And yet you have the John Dickinson Plantation that you're asking people to come and learn about the history, good and bad. Why is that important?
Well, it's always important for you to know about your history. These are people who lived, and they wanted to live, they wanted to grow, they wanted to grow food, they wanted to have families, just like we do today. People are not that different from back then, and so we want to tell you about the people. We want to tell you about their experiences, and it is important today for people to understand that these people matter just like we matter today.
So to get rid of something like that would not only erase the memory of John Dickinson, but the slaves that were there too, and that would be just as bad.
Yes.
Let's talk about the events you have coming up. You have some wonderful events coming up in the next couple of months.
The next couple of months, it's going to be very busy. It's the spring and summer. Up in Newcastle, at the Newcastle Courthouse, we're going to be getting busy with Separation Day and a Day in Old Newcastle. A Day in Old Newcastle happens where it's a garden and home store. It's one of the oldest in the country. And you can come and tour private homes. There's going to be activities at the Newcastle Courthouse. There's going to be activities on the streets with some of the businesses, so come out and visit there. We also have Separation Day, which is when Delaware separated from Pennsylvania and England, and we became the Delaware state. And that all occurred right there in the Newcastle Courthouse. So we're very excited about that. There's a parade that goes through town. It's very exciting. So, and there's all kinds of daily tours that go on. You can go into the courthouse and learn about the court cases that occurred there. It's one of the oldest operating courthouses in the country. It still has court cases there periodically, so trials still go on. So it makes it kind of interesting there.
I need to go to some of these places. Until the both of you told me, I didn't know Delaware and Pennsylvania were ever connected, and I thought I knew a lot about history. Where can someone go and find out all of this information?
Well, you can visit our website. It's history.delaware.gov. And so we have a calendar of events on the website, and so you can just pull up any day, and it will have all the events and the various museums that we operate, and some of our affiliates.
Wonderful. Give the website one more time.
history.delaware.gov.
Great. Thank you both for coming in. I really appreciate you being here. I learned something today. Suzanne Savery is the Deputy Director of the Delaware Division of Historical and Cultural Affairs, and Gloria Henry is the Site Supervisor at the John Dickinson Plantation. That wraps up the Delaware Way for this week. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you again next week.